My name is Sunil Krishna. I heads up the marketing department for Kowe.co. So I would like to introduce the next speaker who does not require any script or write-up, which is why I have nothing. So because he's my boss, and you can see how excited I am to introduce my boss. I do have a salary appraisal meeting with him next week as well. So I thought I might well as use this opportunity. Anyway, I would like to share a fact about our CEO and founder of Kowe.co, Sarana Kumar, which is till date, he wakes up 4 o'clock in the morning to write coding for a product he invented 12 years ago, BizTalk360, that's including weekends. Yeah, I mean, if I were we, I would be counting my cash. Anyway, thank you so much, and it gives me much pleasure to introduce Sarana Kumar, the founder of BizTalk360, to the stage.
Thanks. Are you able to hear me? Thanks, Sunil. Yeah. I kind of expected half room anyway. So I'm assuming like people in this room are doing something with this talk. Yeah? Can you lift your hands, please? All of you are, okay. The others, what are you doing here? Okay. Yeah, I think it was okay. Just a quick intro about myself. I'm Saravana Kumar. I think I'm sure like year on year like we see new faces. People just come to this event first time. So I just want to give a quick introduction. So I'm the founder of BizTalk360. I also like to like a bit of a background about how the whole thing started. So I was working as a BizTalk consultant for about 10 years. So since 2000, the original version of BizTalk 2000, 2002, 2004, all the way up to 2000, 2010, I was working as a typical BizTalk consultant, building solutions for some of the banks, top banks in UK. I was part of one of those biggest NHS reform exercise in UK. So one of the biggest project for BizTalk server at that time between 2004 and 2008. That was about a $15 billion initiative by the UK government. I was part of that. So what I noticed was again and again, we're building some monitoring solutions and some kind of a tooling around BizTalk server. That's how the original idea of BizTalk360 came to me. Initially, I started building on my own. So until even up to getting the first 5 customers, it was actually I was only building the whole product. It just came out of more of a passion, I was heavily involved as in the BizTalk community right from the beginning. Since 2007, I got this Microsoft MVP thing. So it all came as a passion, and initially there was no intention of building a business out of it, but more of a there's a problem, let's solve it. And then I just built the first solution, and then I put it on the market, and immediately within the very first month the product validation happened, because I got the first customer all the way from Hong Kong. There's no connection, I didn't know anybody from Hong Kong. As soon as I just published a blog, and the first customer came all the way from Hong Kong. So that kind of validated the idea, right? Like, okay, it's something, it's a real problem you're trying to solve. And from there, iteratively, the last 10 years, we built up this multiple features, and the product has evolved significantly. And we do, I do present this every year, and people come and ask me, do you still keep building solution in BizTalk360? And it's true, actually. Like, we still release every 3-4 months once there is a release with a bunch of features. There's still a lot of problems we are addressing. We now have like a lot of customers, and the customer requirements comes, and we just keep solving it even today. So today it's more of we are not shipping really massive features, but it's all about the usability and making very nitty-gritty things in the product, and addressing customer pain points. Today I'll just go through some of the features and what's in the thing. I also want to ask a question, how many of you are already using BizTalk360? So I know Okay, so still a lot of you haven't seen the product, so that's good. I can go through what pain points we are trying to solve. So for the first question is, why did we build this product in the first place? What is the necessity for a product like this? So this is a original idea back in 2010. Like this slide had multiple iterations, but the core problems, these 5 problems, remain the same. And since Microsoft started deviating and their focus went more on the Azure and that side, there's not much investment didn't go into BizTalk server. So the problem remained same, and we accelerated and we started filling up that gap, and that's how the product got matured over a period of time. So the first problem is, if you want to support any BizTalk solutions, you really need to have like a skilled BizTalk resources. So typically it happens that people who build the solution, like the developers who build the solution, they end up supporting it, and they support it for over a period of time. So that is the first pain point what we wanted to address, and how can we make it like a L1, L2? I think some of you might have stayed in the previous talk what Mike and Elil was giving on the serverless 360. So this same concept, we are seeing similar kind of a challenge today in Azure, and this is the problem back in BizTalk 10 years ago. We all know BizTalk resources people are very scarce, right? Not that many people available in the market, and that's the case always. And if you tie up your BizTalk people with this on a day-to-day support, it becomes problem for both sides. They don't like it, and the companies they can't afford to do that as well. So that is the first pain point we try to address it. The second is around security and auditing, because if you look at the original BizTalk admin console, it's a very wide open, and anybody can do anything, and there is no governance around it. So that is another problem we solved, and there's a real problem. Like we were dealing with one of the big oil companies that time, and they had about 70 to 100 people on their support, on a day-to-day support, so massive EDI implementation. And they have no visibility of somebody starts something like a send port or orchestration or endless orchestration or restart a host instances. Nothing was visible, and that is the second big problem we addressed. And third is the lack of productivity tools. Typically, if you've been in BizTalk for a long time, you'll know you end up using like a bunch of tools like a standard event viewer, and even performance analysis requires a very deep understanding of looking at all the counters and trying to understand the performance. So there's a big gap in terms of productivity tools. That's another thing we address. And the fourth point is very, very important. That's in fact like people recognize us more of a BizTalk 360 as a monitoring product, and monitoring is one big part of for BizTalk 360. I think SCOM was a only monitoring solution for BizTalk server for a very long time. And as far as I know, I think there's no investment that went into fixing the management pack of SCOM for a very long time. So I don't know if anybody really using SCOM anymore. It's like it's not existent for last 10 years. So when you have a BizTalk solution, typically people end up with a lot of PowerShell scripts and some custom WMI to monitor this and that, and you might use some other tools which are not designed for BizTalk, like New Relic or HP Operation Manager was there that time, and all these tools which were not originally designed for BizTalk to monitor it, that results in a very poor monitoring, or it's not a proper solution most of the time. So that is another problem we wanted to solve. And finally, analytics and reporting. It's always BizTalk server is in the middle of an organization, and a lot of things happens, but you won't have any visibility. It's like a big black box for a lot of things. And I worked with some of the customers that time who invested in solutions like BAM, and then putting some logging and then exposing thing, and it's a really hard problem. Like it's not core part of their business, but they still need to do such things to get the end-to-end visibility. And in fact, the serverless 360, like all this learnings, the funny part is the problem still exists in a different dimension, right? That's why with all these learnings, what we got from there, we are now transforming into serverless 360 and Azure world. But this is BizTalk. So if you're still using BizTalk, this problem still exists, and that's what I just wanted to highlight it. The next, as I mentioned, the originally when back in 2010, like when the original project was started more like a hobby project for me. Like like there is a BizTalk admin console, and there's no web access. Even today, there is no web interface for BizTalk. So that was the original pain point I was trying to solve, and then later we built up a team and then developed it. But today, BizTalk360 become like the required tool if you are in a serious implementation of a BizTalk server. We saw a lot of problems, like it becomes like a more like a real operational tool for you to work if you have like a BizTalk footprint. So just a quick, just to show the depth of, how many customers are using it. We pretty much got customers across the world, 60, 70 countries now, and 650 active customers. A lot of big names, like due to the nature of the product, of course, BizTalk is used only by relatively big companies, right? So all our logos are really big. So we had all this, nice logos to have across the world using BizTalk server, and it's still, it's a lot of footprint on in the market. So I'll just go through very, very quickly what is it's at the top level. We focus on 3 different buckets. So anything you do with administration, so we replace the BizTalk admin console with a very advanced web-based control. And the monitoring is, of course, as the name suggests, it's all about monitoring and making sure things are fine. And then analytics is not treating your BizTalk server as a black box. So the administration side, it's a complete web interface. We have complete parity to BizTalk admin console. Pretty much whatever you can do on the admin console. From an operations point of view, we don't do the management side. Like you can't do things like deployment and those kind of heavy operations. Thing is, the intention for us is, you'll use some other deployment model to deploy things into production. And once it's into production, like how do you run it on a day-to-day basis? Standard things like starting, stopping application, checking the service instances status, and then resuming instances, terminating instances. But with all of the extra efforts, like logging and auditing on inbuilt into that. And also we build things like visually analyzing the message flow and things like that. So it makes it life easy for your support person to visualize it. Securing, secure audit of the admin console. Whatever you do is actually, it's audited. And the second point is something is actually fairly new, something we released recently. With the BizTalk 2020, there is a bit of an audit capability that's inbuilt into BizTalk server. So now BizTalk 360, we are actually capturing that event as well. So before, 2-3 years ago, if you say how do you do auditing, then we need to say you need to force your operation people to use only BizTalk 360. And if they jump and then if they go behind the scene and if they start using BizTalk admin console, we won't know any events what they are doing. So typically we recommend admin console, you give it to 1 or 2 people and the rest of the team uses BizTalk 360. But today, even if they do it in the BizTalk admin console, we will be able to take it and then we log it and you can visualize it right in the BizTalk 360. So one of the other big problem what we solve on the administration side is context switching. If you look at the BizTalk solution, you got BizTalk admin console is of course the heart of this thing when it comes to operations. You do everything. And the challenge is that BizTalk admin console is designed for every single persona in BizTalk server, right? If you're a developer, you use BizTalk admin console. If you're an operation guy, you use it. If you're a deployment guy, you use the same console. So everything is into that single thing. And there is no real segregation of, this role can do only these things within that tool. And that's a big problem. And apart from that, max of the time just build up multiple tools to support the BizTalk. You have a BAM portal, and then ESB was there, ESB portal, and the BizTalk Health Monitor was there. And then Event Viewer is your predominant tool when it comes to, analyzing and fixing problems. So, you ended up if you look at any person who's supporting BizTalk, he or she will use at least 6 to 7 different tools to support your BizTalk environment. That is one thing we consolidated. So the BizTalk 360 comes with that only tool you need, and everything is basically baked into a thing, and with some modernization as well. We have some enhanced everything. We didn't just port it. So if you look at the ESB tool, ESB portal, we have a replica. Is a replacement inside BizTalk360, but with much more advanced capabilities. So let's move on to the monitoring side. Whatever I was showing is more on admin side, day to day. You need to run, manage it. Monitoring is more like like a behind the scenes stuff, right? Like, okay, first of all, you're running a lot of mission critical things on your BizTalk infrastructure. Typically, any middleware product, it quietly does the job behind the scene, right? If your front end is broken, everybody knows it, but if a back end is something like BizTalk server is broken, nobody knew, and and also you will also get the blame as well. Anything broken anywhere, you will get the blame behind the scene. Okay, something in the middle is broken, BizTalk will get the blame. So we built a very robust monitoring solution. So so you got a very rich dashboards. You can visualize it. We have lot of customers. The logos I was showing, some of the customers runs mission critical solutions, and they're being monitored using BizTalk360. Now we are really very proud of supporting like a really prestigious customers across the world on that. And the second part, we have a lot of the alerting mechanisms. So over the years, we have built everything. For example, today you can even have Teams and Slack, and you can send notifications to New Relic and Dynatrace and ServiceNow and all those capabilities. So that is how year on year people ask, are you still building new stuff? This is how things add up, and we keep up pace with the modernization. And today we also support some level of hybrid thing as well in BizTalk360. So if you're using BizTalk and then some parts in Azure, like things like Logic Apps and Service Bus, integration accounts, so you have bit of access to that as well within BizTalk360. So that we started moving in the direction of like a supporting hybrid integration solution to some extent in BizTalk360. And also we have capabilities like auto correction, which is like a lifesaver. Lot of times things might go wrong, and simple restart will fix the problem, right? That's what happens. Like you either restart your host instance or you restart your receive location, because I think receive location, if it does 3 or 4 retries to a FTP location, and if it's not accessible, it shuts down itself, for example. So those things you can put a retry mechanism in place, and then it retries automatically, and then it recovers automatically most of the time. In terms of just like in terms of what do we monitor today, I can safely say we pretty much monitor everything you need in and around BizTalk. If you have a BizTalk environment and you wanted to support everything, it's not only BizTalk. We go bit on the peripheral as well. So things like you might be using a WebSphere message queue, or like you might be using Service Bus queue, or you might need something on the database. Like we support all this extra stuff on this thing. So web services, for example, FTP and file locations, you need to monitor all those things. So we get complete end-to-end visibility of all the things what you can monitor using BizTalk360 now. So in terms of analytics, okay, the monitoring part is over. The first is admin. So day-to-day complete administration you can do with BizTalk360. And the second big bucket is monitoring. It's a complete coverage. Today, if you have you can do pretty much everything with monitoring. And final part is analytics. So this basically we wanted to give visibility into your data, like the lot of things like this messaging performance, like how is your instances doing, and the dead letter processes, and host instance processes. Like there are a lot of things in the tracking data. Like we bring all these things up front, and then we have things like like a messaging pattern visualizer, what kind of messaging patterns you evolve in your BizTalk environment. And we also got a lot of reporting capabilities as well. Imagine you are some of you might be responsible for running your production environment, and you need to have peace of mind every day, right? Okay, you need to get a daily report of what is the health of your BizTalk environment. Is everything okay? If things go wrong, you need to get some anomaly reports and things like that. So there's a lot of reporting capability we introduced not recently, it's been continuously improved over a period of time when it comes to analytics. So in terms of what is next, it's what's upcoming. Like this is a new version. There's a bunch of things we are working on at the moment. So one of the things is what we are bringing is something called automated tasks. So a lot of times what happens is, like people want certain things to, they want to start and stop a bunch of receive location at a scheduled time, or they want to start and stop a host instance or IaaS at a scheduled time. So we are bringing them automation capabilities, so you can actually schedule and run it. And also people using from a EDI background, there's a lot of things around EDI, and we are bringing this monitoring capabilities to EDI agreements, and also ability to manage your EDI parties and agreements all within BizTalk360. And the service bus queues and topics, you can manage them, the state management and message handling, like peeking into messages and checking all those things. So it's also it's coming in the upcoming release, and the SSO operations and performance metric. So the bottom line is we keep improving. This is all maybe coming from mainly from our existing customers. We are not the product is super matured now. So from now we are all fine tuning and responding to all the customer requirements, and then we just do it. I think before going to the next slide, I just really want to peek into the product quickly for like 10 minutes, so that if some of you haven't never seen a BizTalk360, it's not good I just complete with the deck and then leave it. So I just want to spend just 10 minutes quickly to show like how the product looks. So this is a new version. If this is something we released about it's quite a while ago, but there's a chance you might not have seen the new version. Yeah, okay. Just want to go through the product quickly. So this is the new version of BizTalk360. It's the 10. After that we released 3 versions. The UI what you're seeing is a 10 version 10. So we keep changing the entire UI like every 4 or 5 versions once. So we originally was started as a Silverlight, very old technology, and we in version 5 we did a big revamp, and version 10 is our another biggest revamp. So this is a home screen. You typically might have like multiple environments, right? So in this case, I'm demoing it on a test environment, which is a single instance environment. But in a production environment, you might have in a proper setup, you might have a production environment and bunch of other environment like staging, UAT, etc. So you can actually get access to all of them from a single place. So there are a lot of default details. As soon as you can see, there's alarms failed things and some host instance stopped and health and everything. You can look at it straight away. And so once you dive into a particular environment, this is a single environment, but you can swap between the environment easily, and it's all clearly laid down in administration, monitoring, and analytics. And that administration side, like all the BizTalk related stuff, the applications and starting, stopping, and doing message box queries. And people, I'm assuming all of you have seen enough of BizTalk using BizTalk admin console. I don't want to repeat what it is, but whatever you can do in the admin console, it's basically available on the as a web interface here. And we also have the things like you're probably using the BHM as a health monitor stuff. That is also you can configure it. I haven't configured it here, but you can easily configure it so that you don't need to use the tool separately, and you can automate and run it regularly and get health reports. And you can also monitor whether there are any reports, errors coming out of it. I mentioned about some of the hybrid stuff you're doing, so you can also have access to if you're using Logic Apps as part of your solution, you can have access to that as well, and integration accounts. And when it comes to monitoring, so this is the kind of dashboard you get, and you can have multiple alarms configured. So this is one instance, but you can maybe have different configuration. What happened to my customer credit card processing application, or like EDA shipping thing. So people use multiple different alarms to check out multiple things, and all those it's bubbled up nicely, and exactly when you click on it, you'll see what is the problem at that particular node, and you can recover from it. And in terms of managing all these things you can do at the applications and some of the Azure services like API apps, Logic Apps, Service Bus. If you have some kind of hybrid thing, you can do that. And when it comes to queue, you can see MSMQ, IBM MQ, and Service Bus. Everything can be monitored, and SQL Server instances. So as I mentioned, we got pretty wide coverage when it comes to monitoring aspect. with the BizTalk. Data monitoring is another interesting concept. People coming from messaging world, it's about measuring the volume, right? So give, for example, you might have a purchase order processing system, and you might have certain volume every day, and if you're getting not processing like 100 POs every day, there is something wrong. So anything related to data, we have this concept called data monitoring, and you can you get a nice graph, and data could be coming from process monitoring, or message boxes, or tracking, or even BAM and ESP. All those multiple data points available in your BizTalk environment can be monitored for like a known pattern, and if it's not matching your known pattern. And analytics, like as I said, you get different visibility. It's all fully customizable. I'm not going into the details. So you can actually customize all of these graphs, take the data, and then you can show it. The messaging patterns, it picks up all those different patterns that evolve, and we by default we put a GUID, but you can actually rename it. For example, I just renamed one of this before the demo. So this is a very simple, like a pub sub, something received on the receive side, and that's sent to the send side. But it could also be very, very complex. So you can know like it's coming from receive side, bunch of orchestrations, and it going to the send port. All can be visualized. The BizTalk environment, I just mentioned the automated tasks is something new, and you can schedule a lot of this automated tasks. And when it comes to governance audit, everything is audited, so you probably know like exactly who is doing what in the environment, and a lot of filtering capabilities to filter it down. So I just want to give a glimpse of the product, if in case you haven't seen before, that would have given you like just a glimpse of like how the BizTalk360 looks and what you can do. I'll go back to the deck. Okay, so I think I just want to wrap it up with a few things. What are the reasons for you to invest in BizTalk360? I think this is more. I just tried when I was preparing this slide. I just wanted to be pitch it in the direction of what's the current reality as well. There's a lot of people migrating to Azure, and one of the biggest problem we keep hearing is getting BizTalk resources getting harder and harder, right? There are not enough BizTalk people available because people all moved on. Even people who are doing BizTalk, they're bored now, and then they just moved to Azure. Like, the number of people who specializes in BizTalk is reducing day by day. It's who done BizTalk for a long time. It's very difficult, and maybe it's not fair to ask them to keep doing BizTalk for next 20 years as well. So we need to understand the reality. So if companies are facing that kind of a problem, so what is your second best thing, right? After that, you need to make sure you compensate that gap using better toolings and better systems that will manage most of the stuff, so that you can fulfill that. That's one of the reasons what we are practically seeing now, why companies are investing in BizTalk360. So even last couple of weeks ago, we had an interesting case. There's a company in US, and they don't have anybody to run something is running in production. They don't have any BizTalk resource in the company, and if something breaks, they don't have a clue like what will happen. So they reached out to one of our partners, and the partner actually recommended to put BizTalk360, and we'll get 60-70% at least. We know if things are broken, we know what's happening, and after that we will come and fix it. So that's what's happening. That's a reality. I'm sure like a lot of you might be getting towards that state. So that is one reason. And the second reason, maybe there's a lot of things happening in your, I worked with some of the customers before starting BizTalk360. So much heavy investment gone into BizTalk server, right? Like it's very difficult to pull it up. Some of them, maybe it is another 5, 7, 10 years for them to do the migration story to whatever technology, whatever future thing they wanted to move. And a lot of migrations happening, from X version of 2010 onwards or to 2020, some kind of a migration. That is, if you guys are in that position, that is another good reason to look at it. Okay, you might have done, and it's related to the first point I mentioned, right? Okay, that's the reality is you're losing people. You need to, when you're correcting and migrating stuff, make sure you, as part of the process, you put better tooling so that you have at least a bit of a coverage to run your, until whenever that's happening, until that point, you make sure that you have a better tooling to take it forward. And of course, the business risk, due to no or poor monitoring is a known fact. If even after 10 years, there are customers, they don't have any monitoring at all. Like they just run it on the best effort basis. That is another reasons. And the final point, as I mentioned, okay, eventually we all going to go to the new and flashy thing, whatever it's coming, and like we need to move. But if you think that's going to happen in 2 years or 5 years time, it's good time to invest and make sure things are good for until that things happens. Because in enterprise world, we have seen many times, right? Okay, this discussion of BizTalk is dead is going on for last 13 years as far as I know, right? Like, so we don't know, like until that point, you still need to keep running your businesses, right? So that's what, if you have something in the, like you think the migration is going to happen in 2 years or 5 years, it's still a good time to, like invest and look into BizTalk360. So some of the ROIs, what we are seeing people using BizTalk360. So the reporting thing I mentioned, it's a lot of self-service business user capable reporting. What is the volume of messages that gone through the system, like what are the failure rates in the system. It's all inbuilt into the product. Security is another aspect, because a lot of times you need to provide your BizTalk developers access to production systems. So majority of the BizTalk solutions are pretty matured these days, right? You don't want unnecessarily people logging in and doing certain things. So you can actually give read-only access. For example, you cannot achieve that in a reliable way using other BizTalk admin console, but here you can be 100% confident you can give read-only access, and less manual monitoring and daily health reporting for peace of mind. Business continuity with some of the automated recovery stuff, what I mentioned. The other problem I mentioned as the example I gave you, like people are worried, they don't have enough resources to go configure and set it up. So we provide a couple of services from BizTalk360 team. One is initial configuration and setup. We actually don't provide any managed services, because we work with a lot of partners. They take care of it. But setting up BizTalk360 itself, we work with the customer. We spend a lot of time understanding your requirements. We provide initial configuration setup. And also we do an ongoing thing as well. Like, like every quarterly check, we do it. And then we make sure BizTalk360 is running correctly, right? Because you're relying on the tool and thinking, that will give you all the alerts and stuff like that. So we make sure, we provide that as a service from our team. So the next steps, if I inspired you by this talk, there are couple of action items you can take if you're still not using BizTalk360. So one is, get a free trial, or if you want a much more deeper demo, we can arrange for a demo. I think that's all. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Covey.co